Released on February 13th, 2018 for PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, we have the open-world RPG Kingdom Come Deliverance. Developed by Warhorse Studios and published by Deep Silver, Kingdom Come Deliverance serves as Warhorse Studios' debut release and has had a very interesting development history. Warhorse Studios was formed in 2011 by, and I do apologise if I pronounce this wrong, Daniel Vavra, formerly of 2K Czech, who had worked on games such as Hidden and Dangerous, as well as Mafia and Mafia 2, and Martin Klima, who had worked on Operation Flashpoint Dragon Rising. In 2012 they announced that they were working on a role-playing game after having licensed CryEngine 3. After working on a prototype of the game for a little over a year, Warhorse decided to pitch the prototype to investors. Unfortunately, it didn't gather the attention and interest that Warhorse wanted, and while the prototype was praised, investors felt that the game was too niche, as Kingdom Come Deliverance was aiming to be a more realistic medieval game as opposed to the standard swords and sorcery affair. So Warhorse decided to look at another option: crowdfunding on Kickstarter. So on January 22nd, 2014, Warhorse launched a Kickstarter campaign to prove to a potential investor that there was a demand for their type of game. The campaign only asked for 10% of the development costs, and by October of 2014, the game had raised a little over £2 million from its original goal of only £300,000. Deep Silver came into the picture in 2016, and that's how the game got to where it is today. The footage that you'll be seeing in this review is from the PC version of the game. Kingdom Come Deliverance is set in the year 1403 in Bohemia. The game's prologue explains a little of the history of Bohemia with the successful reign of King Charles IV, the Holy Roman Emperor, and a little about the reign of his son Wenceslaus IV, who, in comparison, wasn't exactly that great. While Wenceslaus was described as a knowledgeable person, he had problems with drink and did little about the lands he ruled. Unlike his father, Wenceslaus tended to favour certain people, which made him unpopular with nobles. By the time 1403 rolled around, Wenceslaus had been captured by his brother Sigismund, the King of Hungary, who was invading Bohemia to loot and kill off his brother's supporters. The game puts you in the shoes of Henry, the son of a blacksmith and a peasant of the village Skalitz, who dreams of one day leaving and exploring the world. After running some errands for his father and completing his sword for Seraph, one of the king's supporters and the local lord, the village comes under attack by Sigismund's army, and in the skirmish, Henry's parents are killed and Henry is forced to flee with the sword to the neighbouring castle of Talmberg. After sneaking out of Talmberg and returning to Skalitz to bury his parents, Henry is attacked by bandits who steal his sword and nearly kill him, if not for the help of Teresa, a local girl from Skalitz, and the timely arrival of men from Talmberg. Henry then wakes up in the town of Ratai, in the home of Teresa's uncle, the local miller, and his quest to get his lord's sword back and kill the man responsible for his parents' death begins. If you haven't guessed, the game is based off historical events, and the town and settlements in the game are based off real-world locations in the Czech Republic. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. I'm quite a fan of the game's story and plot. As someone who enjoys history, I really like reading into the stuff that's happening, as well as what people back in those days did in their daily lives, as well as their beliefs and superstitions. The game's main and side quests are an excellent way to show people how things were done back then, whether it was freeing a woman from a ghost that had been haunting her, helping the town executioner, to even something as simple as learning to read, since a lot of folks back then couldn't read or write. The main and side quests have multiple solutions, and not all of them will have black and white answers, and the way they've been written in and how Henry interacts with these characters has been well done too. Some quests can also be completed peacefully, and others are even timed, with a notable one being helping the sick and injured at the monastery. If Henry takes too long, you'll find that some patients won't make it. Quests like these give players a sense of urgency and reminds them that time doesn't always stop for you to take your time with a quest. The game's mechanics are also something I really like. Each town has a reputation system going where if Henry is caught in a private area, people will follow him around and tell him off. If he's trespassing or doing something bad, such as stealing or murdering, people will attack him or report him to the guards, who will proceed to fine him, throw him in jail, or attack him. It could even get to a point where people would dislike Henry so much he would have to pay them just to even talk to him. On the plus side, having less honourable skills is also just as helpful, as stealth and lockpicking can really help with quests too. The game also has an alchemy mechanic where you can mix herbs together to make potions, as well as reading and weapon sharpening mechanics. Even Henry needs to look after himself, with nourishment levels being kept up by eating food, and energy levels being restored by bathing or sleeping. Henry can also bleed out if he neglects to bandage himself up if he starts bleeding, and care needs to be taken with his weapons, armour and clothes too. Worn out weapons won't do as much damage, worn out armor won't protect Henry as well, and dirty and worn clothes can have an impact on conversation with certain people. The game's combat also has its own mechanics with a blocking system, and whether you choose to slash or stab an opponent. While it does take a little bit of time getting used to it, once you've mastered the combat you'll be able to take out just about anyone, though there is some danger if you choose to fight several people at once. The game even has a skill for horsemanship which you can get by simply exploring or going from place to place on a horse, and believe me, I had a lot of fun just simply exploring the countryside and forests. With that though, we're at the end of the good, so let's move on to the not so good with the bad. Sadly, the game is an absolute buggy mess. Whether it's bad collision detection trying to climb stairs, watching people walk against walls, or flying up in the air after performing alchemy, I have not had one session of this game without something bugging out or going wrong. It's gotten to a point where I couldn't complete certain quests because they were bugged, forcing me to try a different approach to resolving them, or failing them altogether. A good example is once again the quest where you heal the sick and injured at the monastery. One of the objectives is to go somewhere and talk to a person there, only that in my game I couldn't talk to them, forcing me to intentionally fail the mission. Another bug required me to load to an earlier point in the mission, and complete it a different way, which can be very frustrating. The game also suffers from texture pop-ins, especially after fast travelling, and I found at times, and most particularly bad in Ratai, that models still need to load in the city, and I'm seeing floating clothes and food on invisible stands, as well as details magically appearing on clothes. The game also seems to want to load every time you talk to someone, and sometimes when I'm doing things like opening my map. While I'll admit some of these issues are amusing, the ones that forced me to fail missions or replay parts of them differently were clearly the most annoying. Another thing I didn't particularly like was part of the game's save system. In order to save in Kingdom Come Deliverance, you had to either sleep in a bed which saved automatically, get to certain points in a quest, or obtain Saviour Schnapps, a potion which will allow you to save instantly. Saviour Schnapps can be purchased or made at an alchemy bench, and like potions in game, contain alcohol, so whenever Henry saves using a Saviour Schnapp, he's also getting a little drunk too. I can see where the developers are coming from by adding to the weight of your choices and actions through restricting and limiting when and how to save, but if you're experiencing issues like the one I just described earlier in the bad, having to lose a fair bit of progress due to reloading the game isn't fun. Thankfully, Warhorse are looking into this issue in a future update. Other than that, there's not much else I can complain about, so let's go on to the opinion. If you're prepared to overlook the bugs and issues the game suffers from, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a really enjoyable game. I found the game was visually appealing, and I was getting vibes of my time exploring Cyrodiil for the first time when The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion came out in 2006, of course without the fantasy aspect. I found Henry to be a likeable character who had been well written, and the amount of choice and freedom to do things in the game is always welcome. Whether you shape Henry from being a peasant son of a blacksmith, to a knight, thief, serial killer, drunkard, or corpse on the side of the road, the game certainly does have some replay value in it just to see how different you could approach things and people. Warhorse Studios I think have done a pretty good job of it, and I'm happy to see what they get up to in the future. Just try not to make future games as buggy as this one. If you enjoy first-person open-world RPGs and are after more of a realistic or historic adventure, then definitely give this game a go. Once the bugs are fixed, it will certainly be a great game. So with that, it's time for my rating. Kingdom Come Deliverance gets this image of a battle scene from the Wenceslas Bible out of 10. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to check out some of our other videos and subscribe for more. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram and our Facebook page. Once again, thank you for watching.